Hey guys, this week instead of a blog post, we have a video, and it's because I want to prove a point. So what you'll hear in the background is my dog Bowie. He's gonna be making some what we call cow noises. There he is. And it's when he's complaining, you can see him there, so cute. When he's complaining about food. This happens every day at around 4 p.m. And what happens is that I feed him at 4 p.m. each day, and so he is like a clock. And so at 3:45, 4 every day he complains. This happens independent of time of day, day of the week. This happens independent of if I was here all day or not. Like, he's not reading any external cues to know what time is it. His internal clock is just telling him what time is it. And we've been doing this for, I have been feeding him for so long that he knows. His body is like used to it. His hormonal cycles are used to eating at 4, and so he knows. I just wanted to start with that example because I want to transmit the message that we humans are not very different than Bowie. We are not. Good. So the purpose of this video today is to answer one question that I get asked a lot, and is, why are our desserts sweet, and why do we eat dessert? And I want to expand from that topic and talk about like how to deal with like some habits, especially related to the habits of consuming sugary stuff. So the question about dessert is very simple. The first thing that you need to know about dessert is that dessert is a cultural thing. So not all cultures eat dessert, not all cultures have sweet desserts. And that tells you that it's not a physiological need of the body, right? Like, we don't need it, we just do it as a cultural practice. And that is important because it tells us that it's a habit. And the second thing that you need to know is how habits work. So a very easy and good model to understand habits is by understanding that they work at 3 levels. There's usually a trigger, there's a behavior associated with that trigger, and there's a reward for a given behavior, right? And so a good habit is a behavior that produces good results versus a bad habit, which is a behavior that produces negative results, right? So let's think about smoking, a bad habit. So there's a trigger that can be whatever, a stress or emotion or drinking a beer, and then I have a cigarette as soon as I get that trigger, and then the act of smoking gets a reward, which is the nicotine shot that I get from smoking. So my brain starts associating nicotine with behavior and with different triggers, and I create a habit, right? Nicotine is very fastly absorbed by the body, and it feels very good on the brain, and so that reward is highly internalized by the body. Sugar works the same way. So I want to give you an example of a different habit, but that is very telling. So I have a client who I love a lot. It's my Profedina. She's a badass. She's an excellent squash player. She's like, if you meet her on the court, be careful. That's all I'm gonna say. But Profedina has this problem, is that she created a habit by going, because every time that she went to the teacher's lounge, she started eating a little bit of chocolate or a little bit of a candy or like whatever sugary thing was there on the teacher's lounge, right? Like, she started doing it kind of casually. She didn't think about it, and sure thing, after some repetitions of that, she realized that every fucking time that she going to the teacher's lounge, there was this urge to eat, and she felt like she couldn't control it. She felt like it was a need, right? And that's a habit. And so whatever the trigger was, she had to go to the teacher lounge. That behavior going into the teacher lounge got rewarded with sugar, and it got rewarded with sugar for long enough time that Profedina, just like Bowie, got habituated and conditioned to expect that. And so what happens every time that Profedina goes into the teacher's lounge is that the Bowie inside her head starts doing cow noises and asking for that fucking chocolate. And it's really hard, and it feels like a need, but it's not a need. It feels like it's uncontrollable, but it's just a habit, right? So the whole point of this, of bringing Bowie and bringing this, is to really, Bowie doesn't know what time it is. Bowie's not gonna die if he doesn't eat. He's just used to it, but it feels very powerful for him. The same is for you. The difference between you and Bowie is that you can understand this, and so you can break it. And so, because Dina can understand that this habit was created by association of behaviors with rewards, if we consciously realize that, it's easier for us to say, like, you know what, I don't really need this, and start breaking it. And once you start disassociating behavior with reward, it's gonna become easier. You just gonna have to power through 3 weeks of discomfort, and surely you will end up breaking that habit. So this simple yet very powerful idea is very useful. For example, there's a lot of I get a lot of people that has trouble with eating sugary stuff before bed, and so that's another situation in which this habitual eating of sugar creates a habit, a very powerful habit, and it's very simple. Again, it's the same mechanics, right? Like all of us have, more or less, some more than others, conscious or unconscious rituals before bed. We brush our teeth or whatever behaviors, like that as we associate with going to bed. So if there's Bowie, if we have those behaviors, and then we before bed we have all our rituals and we start eating sugar, what happens is our body start associating those behaviors with sugar and starts expecting it, and it's very powerful. And so for people that is in this situation, it feels like it's impossible to break, like they're gonna die. The truth is not. It's just a habit, and the way to deal with the habit is to think about it and say, like, fuck, I'm conditioned, I'm not going to die, it's all right, I'm gonna break it, but it's gonna be very, very uncomfortable. Good. So that's a good tool to have. So if you find yourself, if you're one of those persons, for example, has sugary treats every day at 4 p.m., you know that that's a habit. If you find yourself having a lot of cravings for sugary stuff during the middle of the day, and you can identify a behavior associated with that habit, you're in the good. You're gonna be able to break that because we can understand how that's working, and so it's very powerful. It's not easy, and it's gonna be annoying, just like Bowie is. But you can do it. I want to, before I leave, I want to separate this case from the case of people that has a real addiction to sugar, or people that has some cases of emotional eating, or like stress eating or something of the sort. So when you identify that there's a pattern very clear, then that's easy to break, as I said, and you kind of just have to power through. It's a little bit of willpower thing, but there's definitely cases in which, even though there's a reward system, emotional eating is not gonna be as easy to break, because it's not a habitual thing, right? There's an emotional trigger there that is being dealt in the wrong way. So we really have to work with the emotional trigger, because if we just say no, we're not taking out the emotion, right? Like, we cannot break that. And so that's a different case. The other case is when you have a real sugar addiction, which is very common and is very real. You have to treat that as a proper addiction, right? Sometimes addictions come from trauma, and so you have to deal with the trauma. Sometimes addictions are expressions of something that is bothering your context, something that is like bringing you down, that is keeping you close. And so those are different cases, and I don't want to generalize that. Not all cases are just like a matter of willpower. But when you identify that it's something habitual, like Bowie, you can break through, and you don't need to give in. And you can and have the power to just stop it. You just have to. The bad part of this message is that sometimes you just fucking have to say no. So if you're a snacker before bed, this is for you. Fuck it, and just stop it. Awesome, guys. I hope you have a good week. I'll get better at this thing of recording, but I'll go back to writing because I love writing. And say bye to Bowie. He's already calm, and that can be you, right? At one point, you just say enough, and it calms down. And so, have a good one.